Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Landscape Marketing Secrets. Today, I have one of our wonderful employees with us, Mr. Tyler Petoni. Hi, Tyler.
Hey.
And we are going to talk today about Gen Z. And we just figured out he's right between Gen Z and a millennial. So we're kind of a talk about both age groups, but do you mind sharing your age?
Yeah, I'm 26. I just turned 26 in March.
Perfect.
So
I do not want to share my age. So right away, there's one of the differences between us.
yeah. It'll
So
eventually taper off.
So we're calling this the secret to navigating Gen Z employees. And the reason why this is important is a lot of business owners like me and Matt have employees, of course, who are younger or our age. And we've had older employees too. And there's challenges with everyone. But with most people, the future is going to be with younger employees. We can't have a whole company of us, or, we'd have a lot of knowledge, but we'd all be really tired. So except Matt, who can just keep going and going and going.
He's the Energizer Bunny.
I know. It's my husband who doesn't stop, luckily.
No.
So anyway, we are going to talk about a couple things, how to navigate. And one of the first things I discussed with you that I want to bring up today is how to motivate Gen Z. And this is interesting because I'll be honest, I think I've told you this before too. So let's just take a little back step. Sorry, Tyler has been working for us since last August. You came on, we weren't looking for anyone. You found us. I think. Tell them about your background, Tyler.
Yeah, so how I found the company was I actually was sort of fed up with where I was, and I just took sort of a personal day and called every single company that I could regarding anything involving water. Like I said in the last podcast, by degree I'm a marine biologist, so finding somewhere that works with water was really important to me. And
you had a great job that got
yeah,
canceled during COVID.
yeah. I was going to be a fish biologist for Pennsylvania Fish and Boat, and then it got canceled because of COVID. So I sort of floated by, found you guys.
Floated, get it?
Yeah, literally. And I called. I think I got the answering service, and within 10 minutes, Sandy called me. We talked on the phone for an hour and a half, and the rest is history.
So very quickly, you became, starting this year, you became our maintenance manager.
Yes.
Replacing a much older employee who did not want the position, which made it very easy. We would never usurp someone from that position or, override them, but he had been put into it very unwillingly and much prefers to do what he's doing. So it's a kind of a win-win for all of us.
Yeah, he was pretty excited to hand me the baton.
I know. But we're like, you got to still come back and do so. He's like, oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, but we see, and I think I've mentioned to you, you're the future of the company. I mean, you guys are, and we have a great crew. And I want people to know that because a lot of times on landscape business owners, there's a lot of complaints about employees, and employees don't want to work, and employees don't want to do this. And so I have to tell you, one of the things that, and I think I've mentioned this to you, is dealing with you guys, all of you, and I call you guys, the employees that are under 30, is like dealing with my kids. In that, not in a bad way, not have to yell at you way, but in a motivational way, and in a what you guys need as far as reinforcement and encouragement. Yeah. And I'm Gen X, as is my husband. We were the ignored generation that nobody cared about our feelings or gave a shit what we did. We were just told to go outside and come back at dinner. Yeah. So, and of course, I'm standing at the door crying because I didn't want to be outside. But I'm like, can I just go to my room? I'll stay there and read all day. So I would go in my room and read Little House on the Prairie books. But, learning what you guys need has been interesting for us. And especially Matt, who I don't think is as savvy to communication styles necessarily. He's a guy. So I think, and, he and I own the company together, but we handle different parts of it. And his part naturally leads to more frustration because he's out in the field.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll start with how to motivate you guys. What would you say are some of the things that are either different or just important? And I know you're not speaking for your whole generation, but as someone in his mid-20s in the landscape/pond industry, what motivates you?
Well, that's a pretty big question, but it's one that I haven't not thought about. Excuse the double negative there. But I think one thing that I noticed, especially with my generation, that really helps us out is not always physical. It's more of a emotional and mental sort of thing. Like feeling indisposable is so important. because it's so easy to look at someone in my generation, anyone between 30 and 16 that's working right now. I mean, it's so easy to just get rid of them and try and find someone who's more experienced. But the operative word there is try, because that's
Right.
not always in existence. But it's so easy to just look down
Give
on us
up.
because we're
Yeah.
younger. Yeah, and
Hmm.
give up on someone who's a little bit younger. And I think and that's something you and Matt do such a good job of this. You always are reminding us how important we are to the team, how indisposable we are, and how crucial having everyone together is.
Correct.
And so that's one big way. Another one, of course, is, money, but that's for anyone. I think anyone who's 25 and up out of college needs to be making more than $12 an hour. I mean,
I mean, please.
that's not
And
a
one
livable
thing I
wage.
like to say is if you want grown-ups, you need to pay them grown-up wages.
Exactly. And that's something that you guys ensure that you do for all of us. It doesn't matter what
Yep,
position
yep.
we are and we
And
start.
also keeping everyone through the winters when we started seeing a real switch to
Yeah.
professionals is when we started treating you guys like professionals and kept you on all year.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another thing that actually is highly motivating, it's not something that necessarily the business owners do. It's actually something the team does.
Okay.
When you have someone who's a little bit younger, like you have me, Josh, and Ben, who are between 26, oh, and Dallas, but in terms of the guys from Penn State,
Yeah.
between 26 and 30. And seeing a team that shows up every day, that
Yeah.
makes every effort to show up, sort of motivates other younger team members to show up. Because if you see one slacking off, you're like, okay, we're younger, we're not getting paid attention to, we can slack off too.
Right.
But we have a highly motivated team that sort of keeps each other accountable for showing up.
We do
And I think
now.
that's, yeah, now, well, that's what I mean is like, it's weird how you can trim some of the fat and then all of a sudden you have a bunch of really reliable guys who almost push each other to constantly be there.
That's great. I
I
love
think that's
that.
really important.
I
Thanks.
think that's super important. And that's a good way to put it because you're right. We had a couple team members last year that didn't work out, and one of them you knew.
Hmm.
And I mean, you didn't know him. He was you when you came on
Worked with
board, he
him.
was still
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And at times he brought the company down.
Yeah.
And you're right. Like, people your age can go either way. And if they're seeing someone get away with stuff who's making more money, that told everyone they're making more money,
Yeah.
and, is getting away with doing less work, how does that affect you guys?
Yeah, it's a trickle down sort of. You have to hold each other accountable, and seeing someone in your age group showing up and being there motivates you to be at that same level of maturity professionally and just in life.
The other thing I think that I've noticed that, and I'm in communication, so I see this stuff and try to act on it,
Yeah.
is the importance of including your significant others in our work life.
Yes, that is super important. I mean, you guys, so for anyone who doesn't know, we do a fun event every month. We try to. Matt and Laura are really good about keeping us together as a work family and doing things outside of work together. And
Yep.
every event we get to bring significant others, and it just ties that team and family feeling together so much better. And knowing that extensions of your life are thought about and included are also very important.
Well,
Because you're
because, the expression happy wife, happy life, and it's the same with happy girlfriend.
yeah,
But if you go home and complain and all these people, if your significant other doesn't know us, they're not going to be able to help, boost us even.
yeah, exactly.
Like Jackie loves me now, your girlfriend.
Yeah, she
So if
does.
you complain, she'll be like, that's not Laura's fault, right? No, I'm kidding. That's not. But you know what I mean? Like we want to
Yeah.
develop, and with Megan too, but we want to develop relationships so that it becomes an extension of our work family as your significant others.
Exactly. And it's a chain reaction sort of relationship. If it doesn't work somewhere, it's going to trickle down to each subsequent layer of that person.
Correct.
And relationships are a big part of that.
And so we did, like you said, we did axe throwing this winter.
Yeah.
Which was fun. We should do that
Yeah,
again.
we should. The Phillies game.
Phillies
you
game
guys
where
did the
we took even
aquarium.
children.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
Our one
Yeah.
employee who has a stepdaughter, she came and she's adorable. She's awesome.
Yeah.
And we took
She was
my
very well
son, who
spoken too.
drove me nuts, but that's a whole separate thing. But yeah, so then you're right. We went to the aquarium, and then this month you guys all came to our son's bar mitzvah.
Oh my God, that was such a blast. If anyone needs an event planned, call Laura.
Just bar mitzvahs. That's my specialty.
Yeah,
Bar bat
she's
mitzvahs.
phenomenal. Oh, it's so good.
But that's, and when we had our daughter's bat mitzvah 8 years ago, we only invited Eric. And
Yeah.
again, that's us as the owner. So, and that's what we talked about last week when Matt and I were talking, is how important it is to treat your employees like you as a company want to be. So we
Exactly.
pride ourselves on being a family run business.
Yeah, and especially
And
with relationships, like that is part of your worker's identity is
right,
the person that they're with, and
right.
including that is so important.
But including you guys at these special events in our lives
Yeah,
shows that we think you guys are important too. So, and
exactly.
it could be as simple. And this summer you weren't here. Oh, you were fishing. I think you were on a fishing trip when we
Yeah, I
had
was on a fishing
everyone
trip
to
with
our
my dad.
backyard.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we had
yeah,
a swim party this year too, last year, and we'll do that again where everyone comes swim in our rec pond.
yeah, yeah. I heard that was a lot of fun. That was like
Yeah,
right before I started, actually.
yeah. And I had invited you, and you said I think you were going on a fishing trip with your dad.
Yeah, yeah.
So this year we'll plan it because we'll know you're here. So, you know, I'm glad to hear you say you appreciate these things because if you don't have employees in your life that you want to hang out with, you probably don't want to be with them at business either.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And it's nice too because you and Matt invite everyone trusting us. You trust that we're going to behave and represent the company well. You're
Right.
not helicoptering us and like sort of micromanaging because like you can have people at events, but if you're sitting there like picking everything they do,
Right.
just
No.
trust them. We're people. I mean, it's nice that you guys actually trust us
You
to
guys all lifted
represent
my
us.
family up literally in chairs for the hora, except
Yeah,
me
we
who
did.
did not want to go
I
up in the air. No,
I
thank
should
you.
have stretched before that one. I felt it in my shoulders.
Poor Matt. We went to a bar mitzvah this week and nobody offered, and he had to pick up like three of them. He's like, "Oh my god, his shoulder was hurting. Too
Yeah,
old
he's
for
the right
this."
one.
But yeah. So it's like you said. I think it goes both ways, and I think motivation. I understand money is a part of it, and but also explaining to you guys where your future is going to be, how you can make more money, and always showing you what the next step is.
Exactly. If you don't mind if I tack on top of that, it's like extending the feeling of being wanted and accepted in the company. Because a lot of people in my age group are sort of floating right now. We're
Right.
in this limbo where we're trying to establish our lives and our futures. And being a part of a company that sort of ropes you in is like, hey, we're embracing you as an employee. We want you.
Yeah.
Makes all the difference in the world because it's really easy to feel like you can just snap your finger and be gone. So
Right.
knowing that you're wanted is very, very
All
important as
four
well.
of you are super wanted right now.
Oh yeah.
Is it four? Yeah,
Five with
five.
David.
Oh my God.
It's okay. He's seasonal and he's part-time. It's okay. He's a good
Right.
kid.
He's
Yeah.
awesome. We have a new
Yeah.
kid that just started last week.
Yeah.
But, even I don't know if we touched on this last week or not, but one of our employees is in Korea for a month right now, which is very disruptive to our business, but very worth it because he's that great an employee. He
Yeah.
had an opportunity to go to a place he's never been, although that's his homeland. I mean,
Yeah.
that's his
That's where his
heritage.
family's from. Yeah.
Correct. He's going to
Like
see
direct
his
family.
his grandmother who's very sick. He's going to see her. He's going to a wedding and he's going to be there for a month. And that's the sort of
Yeah.
thing that even 5 years ago Matt would have been really pissed about and we might have said, don't come back. But that's
Yeah.
stupid for us too. So it
Yeah.
really goes both ways. It truly is a give and take and I'm sure Josh really appreciates that we embrace him and can't wait for him to come back, but we encouraged him to go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely
So
important.
what about you mentioned something right before we got on the call that was really
Yeah.
interesting, which is the challenge of dealing with older clients.
Yeah.
So, how, as a Gen Z employee, are you? Because, especially our industry, and I think even landscaping in general, I mean, these are all luxury items. Nothing is
Yeah.
needed. And therefore, someone in their early 20s is most likely not going to be purchasing a pond,
Yeah.
nor will they be needing major landscaping.
Yeah.
So it just makes sense. But how do you navigate that?
So it's honestly a little tough, especially not only being so young, but also being in the role that I am, which is somewhat of an authoritative, like I
Yeah,
sort of yeah,
your
and
managerial position. Absolutely.
exactly. And trying to communicate that to some people that there's an age gap between, it's tough because there's almost like this pre-established mistrust because you're younger. And yes, there is less experience, but
Hmm.
less experience doesn't mean incapable
I
because
love
we're
that.
all very capable. We're all very well trained. We're all very smart. Our whole team, they're great out of the box thinkers. They're
Hmm.
really good at complex abstract thought, but it's hard to sort of convince someone to trust you when there's already mistrust, and it does pose some roadblocks in professional relationships with clients and sort of trying to talk to them in person and explain to them, hey, you could use this, or
Right.
maybe we could take something this route. So it is tough. I think the best way to deal with that though is patience. And honestly, if you have to, sometimes you just got to swallow your pride and communicate it to a client or a employee like Eric, who's been with the company for a while. He's more
9
seasoned.
years.
Yeah, exactly. He's more seasoned. So sort of deferring to that. I mean, you're communicating to the client, just not directly through yourself. So you got to work with the ebbs and flows of that relationship, because older clients, yes, sometimes there's a mistrust and a gap, but younger clients, like I was at a client yesterday who's probably in their low 30s, and we got along great.
Yeah.
It's just you got to work with what you got, and there is unfortunately a disconnect in age.
It's funny you said that, because as you know, we recently hired a video company. We're going to do a series of videos on the cost of different ponds and going out to each one and showing what you get for a certain price.
Yeah.
And I had mentioned to you guys, and one of our employees, Ben, told me he has a very good friend that has a company that does this. So I have to admit, like, without Ben's, I don't know, but it's different because it's video, but without Ben's recommendation, I might not have gone for someone as young as I did.
Yeah.
Because you do worry, but you also know, especially when it comes to video and technology, you guys most likely know way more than us.
Yeah. No,
So-
exactly. Well, and that's the thing. It's an ebb and a flow. There's differences in what's the word I want to use? There's sort of caliber of what we're capable of at the time, because
Right.
like, of course, we have more training with technology because we grew up with it. It's
Right.
part of our schooling. Like, they don't even teach cursive anymore.
My son can't read cursive.
I can't either, and I got taught cursive.
What
It's
the
just
heck?
too
Yeah,
many
Rachel was taught
swirls.
cursive and she's 21. It's our daughter.
I only
No,
just
he
use my
cannot
signature.
read, which is fascinating. And he doesn't know how to sign his name.
Oh, see, that
He like
we
writes
made
his
sure we
name
taught.
like, with like, I'm like, okay, well, that's one way to do it. But we're going to have a generation of kids that don't know how to sign their names.
Yeah, it's just going to be like a scribble.
Yeah. Well, he just writes it. He doesn't like cursive.
That too,
writing,
yeah.
so.
I mean, I guess if it's in pen, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. But, so I see what you're saying. It is very different. And I like that idea that you have the understanding of when you need to show when they need someone older or more seasoned or experienced to validate what you're saying.
Yeah. And as much as like it might suck, like internally, you kind of feel it a little bit, it stings. You're like, I mean, like, I'm not incapable, but it's just it's a stigma that is really hard to change in a mass of people. And as a team, if you just kind of work through it, that's what helps. It's nice that we actually do have the structure we do with a little bit older employee and younger guys, because there's like a sort of rat-a-tat, and we could bounce stuff off of each other and we help each other out.
Right. No, I love that. And so let me ask you this. Why do you think people your generation get such a bad rap when it comes to work?
In my own opinion, I think that because of social media and like TikTok, sorry about my dog, TikTok and everything, that that you always see the millennials and the Gen Zers like doing stupid trends, and they're so gullible because of social media. But I just,
That's one part of your life. That's not your life.
yeah, I think that also, like, when you look at someone who's younger, you just automatically assume less experience. And yes, realistically, you're gonna have less experience because you haven't gotten to the point. You're not 9 years ahead. Like,
Right.
you're starting off, but we're still very smart, capable individuals.
Sorry, my light went out, so I'm
Oh, no,
plugging
you're
it
good.
in.
You're good.
There we go. Oh, shine right back on me. Okay, much better. Excuse me. No, I think that's a really good point, because and people are quick to blame, and people are quick to find the negative. And I think a lot of business owners are just make these huge, broad assumptions.
Yeah.
Anyone in their 20s is stupid. Well, if you think like that, then why are you going to be smart if someone's already assuming you're a dumbass? Like, what's the motivation for you?
Yeah, and it's like,
It's
I
preconceived
mean,
notions.
exactly. It's this pre-established ideas that, like, and yeah, I mean, if you look at the trend, I will admit you probably have less reliable, less motivated people around my age, but also there's a cause and effect to everything.
Right.
And if
And
you
that's,
look
first of all, that's not all of them. That's some of them.
no, that's what I mean. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
But,
no,
like,
you're absolutely right. And
yeah.
you're right that it goes both ways. Because if we have the assumption that guys in their 20s aren't going to know anything, guess what? You guys aren't going to know anything because we're not teaching you.
Yeah, and what you put out into the universe grows, and the energy you give it is going to cultivate exactly what it's intended to. So if you don't cultivate a positive, reliable relationship, then you're not going to get one back.
Right. And if you question everything someone does and ask them to track every second of their lives, you're going to feel untrusted. And if you feel untrusted, you're not necessarily going to want to do your best work.
Yeah, and one of the most disgusting feelings in this world is being mistrusted. It's just it sits bad with people.
Yeah.
You don't want it just doesn't
Yeah,
motivate
of
you.
course. You want, and that's why every member of our team has a credit card.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, but it's important to us that every member knows that we trust them with a credit card.
And that's
Even the
something I
one who
think
loses stuff all the time, but he's never lost his credit card that we know of.
he's
So,
gotten it back.
oh, okay, better for me not to know.
That's with you.
But so let's talk about advice you have for people that are listening that are your age or are your generation and feel misused, feel mistrusted, or feel unappreciated. What advice would you give to people in order to establish a better relationship with their bosses?
I think this is gonna sound so corny. I did it last podcast too. I said something corny, but like know your worth. Like
Mm-hmm.
know what you're capable of. Trust your knowledge, trust your experiences, and trust that you can think outside the box and figure things out creatively. Like just know your worth in life. Like you know what you deserve, you know what effort you can put into things and what you should get back for that. And just stay strong. If you're with a company or if you're with someone who you really feel like is putting you down or not getting you where you need to be mentally, emotionally, and physically in the next 5 to 10 years, look for something that you know you're worth. I mean,
Yeah.
that's exactly what I did. I felt just kind of like I was being passed along in my other jobs
Yeah, we're
and I
marginalized.
or marginalized, yeah, and like just go for it, honestly. I mean, what this is the time to do it. You're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, like you have so much time left, just go for it.
Right. So you're basically saying don't settle.
Don't settle, like know what you're worth.
But I also think, and I love and agree with that. And that also means you have to communicate.
Exactly.
So if someone don't assume that your boss, a lot of this comes, and Matt's word, do you remember Matt's word of the year?
Systems.
Communication.
Communication. No, systems was
Systems is
you, yeah.
mine. Yeah. Yeah.
Communication was Matt, yeah.
Yeah. Because and so it goes both ways.
Yeah.
If you guys are having issues and you and I talked about this a couple weeks ago that you were holding things in, and if you don't communicate, I can't help you.
Yeah. And it's also like between the age difference, like understand how certain generations communicate to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Because not everyone in what are you, Gen Y?
Gen X.
Gen X. Okay. Gen X, like not everyone texts all the time.
Right.
Emails are the most important thing, or like vice versa. Like it's a
Yep.
lot easier to get someone my age through text message than it is email. I mean,
But as I point out to you guys repeatedly, when you text me, I lose texts.
yeah. So I email
So,
everything to you now.
yep, if you want
Yeah.
if you want me to respond to something, you need to email me. You're
Yeah.
right. And then we also, like my daughter and my son, probably even more, they don't like talking on the phone.
Yeah.
Which is so weird because I think that's actually Matt's main way of communication.
Yeah, it is. And a lot of a lot of our clients too. Like
Correct.
we grew up texting, so we
Yeah.
lack verbal communication. We lack that skill and that sort of common practice.
Correct.
So it makes us nervous.
And that's why you got to just do it.
Yeah, I know.
But
I
you're
just
right.
started doing it. Yeah.
It is. And I know. I mean, when I was my son, I think he even asked me one time, he said something to the effect of like, can you use your phone to call people? I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, what? Like, yes, you can. What are you talking about? Like, of course you can call people.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's ever, like, he's FaceTimed, but he's never made a phone call, and he's
Exactly.
12. Like, why would he?
Exactly. So
But
there is a gap. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's going to be interesting as, his generation, because I was telling you, he's right. Like he's almost alpha generation, which is this whole bizarre generation where they literally don't know that cell phones can be used to talk to people.
Yeah, it's crazy. I thought we were we were sort of lost, but there's just so much that's being, and it's not that it's being outdated, it's just being forgotten.
So I think what you're saying too then is people of your generation have to understand how to communicate with people of all generations.
Yeah, that's something that's really tough. Like I'll try and send our clients like confirmation texts that I'm on the way, and half of the older clients only have landlines. Like
you're like, what?
And I'm like, what do I do? Like, so it's hard too because
yeah,
and not every software or technology is built for that
Correct.
gap in communication.
Correct. That's a really good point.
Gotta get creative. That's all.
And that's also why we have an office manager that's great at talking on the phone.
I love her.
Yeah, she can soothe over anything. So that's but that's where you understand your limitations or your lack of experience, and then turn to someone with more communication telephone experience to help.
Yeah, and I think that's also another thing that's important. You asked me earlier, like, why do you think they're, or like, what would you tell the people in my generation? It's also
Hmm.
like you need to like take a gut check,
Yeah.
realize like what's important and what's it's gonna take to get you where you need to be, and just do it. Like as much as it sucks sometimes, just do it. I mean,
Except that everything can't be the way you want it either, is kind of
exactly. Yeah, don't expect everything to fall into place the way you want it to.
just
You
because
just
you
gotta
want to
sort of
text doesn't mean everyone's going to text.
yeah, and there's my senior quote in my yearbook was that one line from Rocky. It doesn't matter how many times it doesn't matter how hard you hit. It matters how many times you get hit and get up and keep moving forward. Just
Love
take
it.
the hits and keep pushing. That's all. You'll get there.
I love it. And he did, right? I've seen like one
I think
Rocky
so.
movie
Yeah,
once.
I actually had never seen Rocky as much as that's.
You
I
just
know that's like
quoted it. I love
I
it.
know, but I looked up good quotes and I like that one. I was like, that's a pretty
This
badass
sounds
quote.
like
Like,
me. Well, now
yeah,
you have
man.
it. Now
Yeah,
I'm putting you to it. You need to watch at least one of the Rocky
that's
movies.
fine.
Watch the
I'm taking a
first one, I think,
picture with the statue if that
right?
counts. Yeah,
Understanding that.
yeah.
So, any final words of advice? I think we've gone over a lot here. We've explained a lot that it's, communicating with different generations. Both sides need to be flexible. Both sides need to understand. We have to trust you guys. You have to accept our differences. Any final thoughts?
I think no matter what, something both my parents always taught me is if it gets hard or you feel like something's not going your way, sometimes you just need to take a deep breath, step outside yourself, and look at how things are going, and if there is anything you can do, or if there's ways you can communicate for your team members to help you do.
As opposed to just sucking it in and getting angry.
Exactly. Communication is key in
Yeah.
everything, and just staying on top of that, I think, is so important.
Perfect. I think that's a great
Thanks.
way to end things. I think,
Thank you.
no, I mean, honestly, communication is key to everything. And I'm glad that you see that. And
Yeah.
that's why it was so important that we made it our word of the year for business as well as systems, because if we don't communicate with you guys, tell you what the next step is, like Matt used to have, and he's in the field, he would have this expectation that people could read his mind.
Yeah. It's easy to do that.
Yeah. And you can't. And then he'd get mad when someone didn't know what he wanted. Like, dude, you didn't tell them. We have to have a system. This equals this equals this. So once you guys, of course, are more comfortable understanding where you're going if we've laid it out.
Yeah, especially that's the biggest thing this year taking on this new role that I've learned is how important communication is in
Yeah.
every sense of the word.
And we
With
gave you a
clients,
job
with each
description.
other.
We talked
Yep.
you through. We go over it. We discuss what you can and can't, which makes sense for you to handle, what makes more sense for our office manager to handle. And
Yeah.
like you said, it's all about systems and communication.
Yeah, as
We
scary as
got it.
communication might seem, it's the most important. It'll make your life so much easier. It just, oh,
Love it.
Yeah.
So on that note, please feel free as always to communicate with me. For everyone out there, you can text me 215-805-8257. You can also email me or and like, subscribe, and comment on my podcast and my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, Tyler. I appreciate you as always, which I
Of course.
try to tell you very often.
Oh, you do. It means everything.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one.
I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.